ever read an obituary and thought, that can't possibly be the whole story? 94 years and that's all we get? A list? Where they worked, who their kids were, who their nieces and nephews were, what clubs they belonged to, how many children they had. And I always find myself thinking, surely to goodness they knew something. They could have left me a message. They could have given me the flame to pass on. They must have learned something along the way, right? They must have figured something out the hard way. You know, the school of hard knocks that if you live long enough, everybody gets to go to. They must have had a moment that changed how they saw the world. But none of that makes it in. And I used to think the problem was that life is not a resume. But the more I thought about it, I actually think the opposite is true. Life is a resume. It's just not an employment resume. Hi, I'm Annie, your trusted tour guide for life's meaningful milestones. I'm here to help you create, save, and share what matters from your life. With a little project management, a little modern tech, and I like to think a whole lot of humanity. And this is Wisdom Wednesday. So I'm at episode 46, and I have taken on YouTube as my expression of what I want to share with people, what I want to teach. I'm a bit of a tech junkie. Anyway, some people knit, I do YouTube, and all kinds of tech. Anyways, let's get back into it. Somewhere along the way, we were taught to measure ourselves by one very specific document, the employment resume. Where did you work? What was your title? What did you accomplish in a professional sense? And don't get me wrong, that matters, and it is an accomplishment. But not everybody has a resume that says they went to Harvard or did this or did that. But it's only one slice of a much bigger picture. Because while you were building your employment resume, you were also building another one, quietly, without a template, without a LinkedIn profile, without anyone asking you to list it out. Your life resume. It includes things that you might see in an obituary, but there are other things that I really want to help you share and build. Who did you show up for when it wasn't always convenient? What did you keep going through, even when it was hard? What did you learn the hard way that you now carry forward? How did you treat people? How did you learn to treat people? How did they treat you? What did you do when no one was watching? Not that I want to know too much about that, but you know what I mean. No TMI here, gang. What did you build, nurture, fix? When were you the happiest? Me, a lot of it, I know it sounds crazy, Excel spreadsheets make me happy. I disappear into them. And what did you hold together over time, no matter what? That's a resume too. And for a lot of people, it's the one that actually defines them. But here's where things get a little shaky. Because when employment changes or ends, as it inevitably does, a lot of people feel like they've lost their value. They retire, they get laid off, they step away to care for someone. They shift seasons. That's what happens in life. And suddenly, the resume they've been taught to rely on doesn't feel like it holds anything for them anymore. And if that's the only resume that you recognize, it can feel like you don't hold anything anymore. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is this. You've been carrying a much richer resume all along. You just didn't think of it that way. It just hasn't been named. And if we don't learn to see it, we risk losing sight of our own worth in the moments when we need it most. And this is where I come back to those obituaries. Because what we often write at the end still leans heavily on the employment resume and the educational resume. And we leave out the deeper one, the way we made people feel, the way that we handled the hard things in life, The lessons we learned and passed on and are trying to pass on, sometimes without even realizing it. That's the life resume. What mountains did you climb? And they don't have to even be mountains. What did you accomplish? And if no one captures it, it disappears. Not because it didn't matter, but because we didn't have a place to put it. So maybe this is the shift for today. You don't need to become new to have something meaningful to share. You already have a resume. You've been building it your entire life, and you're the only one on the planet that has it. Millions of people can say they worked at car factories. Millions of people can say they were doctors. Millions of people can say that they worked wherever, but only you lived your life. The question is, are you willing to recognize that? And from a project manager's perspective, this is one of those things that sounds important, but quietly never gets documented. Not because we don't care, but because no one ever handed us the format to share these things. So here's a small step you can take. Start noticing your life resume. The places you've been, the friends you've made and lost. Not in a big overwhelming way, just a small moments. Something you handled well. Something you learned the hard way. I keep coming back to that because that's such a big part of life. It's like, oh, I'm never going to survive. And all of a sudden you're looking back on it. Something you're proud of that no one else saw. And if it feels right, ask someone about theirs. What do they have in their life resume? I'm going to share one of my moments. I have 2 kids. I think that's huge. That is such a big deal. I was part of making 2 human beings. And yet we worry about what's on an employment resume. Well, I don't care what you do. It's not as big as making human beings. But anyways, that's just my perspective. I also went to a couple Super Bowls, but we'll talk about that another day. Because, you know, if you reach out to someone and you ask what they've done, which people so rarely do, they're so anxious to only share, you know, be a receiver once in a while. Ask someone. You might be sitting across from someone who thinks they don't have much to show, and yet to you, it could be fascinating. They've built a life full of things worth remembering. So, again, I'm Trusted Tour Guide Annie. This is Wisdom Wednesday, and you are on my journey because some people knit, but I do YouTube. And I want to share what my wisdom with you on Wednesdays. And in the meantime, keep walking toward what matters.